Okay. Good evening, everybody. I will keep talking in English because of. Okay. So my little showcase, I'm gonna keep it within 10 to 15 minutes. It's gonna be about custom theme development. So I don't know how many guys of you do custom theme development. So we have our own agency and we mainly do custom theme development. So most of the time we get designs from agencies and we convert them to really custom WordPress themes. So we never use a standard theme or we always start from scratch. So the last years we tried to automate a lot of stuff to make a custom theme with all the functionality into it. And I'm gonna walk you through how we start setting up a WordPress version and a custom theme. Now, the first thing that we do, and I already gave a talk over here about our famous 1 minute installation of WordPress. WordPress uses the 5 minute famous WordPress installation. We compressed it to 1 minute. So we use a lot of bash scripting and WP-CLI for it. So, and I just run a website over here. I set it up as wordpresscafe.local on my local machine. And if you can see over here, we're just running a bash script that's gonna run a lot of WP-CLI functions. So it's gonna download WordPress, it's gonna create a config file, it's gonna install the language that's needed for the client, it's gonna set up the time zone, the time date, it's gonna activate all the plugins, it's gonna update, it's gonna delete the ones that we don't need. It's gonna check which themes that we need, and we have our own custom theme, and it just runs through a whole lot of stuff. And when this script is finished, and it's just one script that we use, and it's called on our machine, it's called WP Setup, and that runs the whole stuff. And when it's finished, and I will show you the small code that the bash script contains. So it starts over here. You can set your database name, your local URL, your prefix that you want to use with WordPress, your title, your tag, and some other stuff that you can define. And on the end, it's just going to open Google Chrome and open the website. So this runs within a minute, and then we have this. So we have our WordPress version completely set up with all the themes installed, activated, and stuff like that. So the first thing that we do is we automated a lot of stuff that sometimes we forget. So for example, the permalink structure. Default WordPress uses the question mark and the permalink behind it. So we do a check if the permalink is set correctly. Also, one of the few mistakes that you make is when you go from a staging version to a production version. On the staging version, you test a lot of stuff and you enter your own admin email address. And the things that we might forget is when we go to the production version, we just forget to change the email address to the address of the client. Yeah? And it's really awkward when a client calls after a month and they say, I didn't receive any forms for the moment, how can it be? And we say, and then we see that our email address was still into as the admin email. So we have a lot of functions that we've written within the functions file that does a lot of checks for it. Some other stuff we also did is things that we use throughout every website. For example, we wrote some extra customizer functions. For example, under the site identity, that you can add a small excerpt of what the website is about. And that's going to be injected into the footer, or they can use it through a shortcode everywhere on their website. What other stuff? I'm sorry, I just pressed the wrong button. What did we also add? For example, contact information, where you can enter the company name of the client, the address, and just the normal contact information. This is also stored in shortcodes, and the client can use this throughout the whole website within the editor with shortcodes. So when, for example, the email address changes on the website, you just need to change it over here, and it changes it throughout the whole website. So what other stuff did we do? For example, social media. We gave them the option to add their social media URLs. Website credits, because we do a lot of work for agencies and they want to have their copyright information in the footer. So we also added a function over here that they can control that part of it. Sometimes they ask for some custom code that needs to be injected into the header, the body, or the footer, for example, some specific Google Analytics code, Google Tag code. So they can do it over here, and we don't have to open the editor within WordPress. So it's a really contained add-on. Google Analytics, they can just add their tracking ID over here, and then all the code gets implemented onto the specific pages. We also have a development modus that we can activate, and it's just to see which responsive version we're on. For example, the default one for small devices, medium devices, large devices. So we can always see on which responsive version that we're working on. And then this is the default that's been added with WordPress 4.7. So these are some small add-ons we added into the customizer that we need for almost every website. So this is just the basic stuff. How does it work on the back end? The thing that we do, firstly, when we use our custom theme that has all our code, we're going to update the theme. We have implemented Bower into our WordPress theme. We use Composer, and we use, I forgot the third one, Composer, Bower. The other one will come in mind. So we run an update over here, and it gets all the JavaScript files that we need. For example, if you want to use FlexSlider on the website, we're just going to get the latest version out of FlexSlider through the GitHubs. So this is the code we run for NPM to update all the grunt modules and stuff like that. This is the Bower for updating. For example, we use Font Awesome a lot. We use FlexSlider, jQuery, just added that one, and Composer then. So when we jump into our custom theme, this is our custom theme setup. So what do we have in our custom theme setup? We have some add-ons. This one is empty for a moment, so when we write some add-ons, we just put them in here. And here they got included, and when we use styles, we add them over here. We got a lot of assets, and what are the assets? For example, some Google assets, some functions specifically for Google Analytics, some functions for the Google Maps API, for example. Nowadays you need to add your API key when you use Google Maps into it. So we wrote a function for that one. We also have a lot of functions for plugins. So for example, Gravity Forms. These are some a small custom spinner that we wrote for advanced custom fields for the Ajax. WooCommerce, for example. We have some functions over here for WooCommerce to add WooCommerce in a content wrapper. What do we have here? To get the category description onto the category pages. We changed the breadcrumb default look and feel, and we add some classes onto it. For example, if you want to change your loop columns from 3 on a row to 4, you can change it over here. So here are some specific WooCommerce functions. WooCommerce bookings. Yoast, for example, we have a specific settings files that has already all the default settings for the Yoast plugin. So we just inject that one also through WP-CLI, and everything is also set up for Yoast. So also here, some small functions for example, moving the Yoast SEO meta box to the bottom of the page. So sometimes it gets injected into the middle of your edit page, so we move it always to the bottom of the page. And so on. We also use the TGMPA module. What's this module? I'm going to show it over here when we go into the backend. Sometimes you want to add, or you want your client to install some extra plugins that really enhance the website. For example, we provide the client to install the broken link checker, and that's a plugin that's going to check which links or URLs in your website is going wrong. A cookie notice, for example, if they want to have a cookie notice on their website, they can get it over here. The responsive lightbox crack an image optimizer to optimize all the images. And they can start installing the plugins or activating the plugins. So we have total control about the list that's shown over here. Yeah? And that's set within our settings over here. Here we're going to define what we would like to be installed on the website. So, so this way we can control every plugin that we need within the theme. I'm going to jump right through. Yeah, then we have some shortcodes that we've written with all the contact information, the social media links you see in the customizer, and stuff like that. Some specific WordPress admin scripts, and then everything that has to do with the customizer scripts that you saw a few minutes ago. And then we got over here our Bower Components folder. Our Bower Component folder gives you the ability to install some extra stuff like Flex Slider, Font Awesome, and stuff like that. Then, of course, your CSS folder with all your compiled CSS files for your front end, for your editor styles, and for your admin styles that you need for the website. Then we have the customizer, also some extra functions. I'm not going to show it all. The image folder where some specific images are, JavaScript folder, language folder, page templates. We always use a different folder for a page template. So we have a nice overview of every page template that we use, also for post types. We use mainly Sass to control the design, and goes really quickly. For example, if I want to give you a small example, over here we have some variables. We can add some extra variables, and if we would like to say, okay, I want to give the background image a blue color, and I want to give the H1 the color of number 2, you're going to see over here that it's already run. And when we open the website in the front, you see it's already compiled. So what I want to say, this is yellow, for example, and we're going to run this one. Everything's going to get parsed now. It's just dumped a plain compressed CSS file, and you see color is changed. So so Sass, really powerful. I don't know how many of you guys use it, but it gives a lot of power. And then mainly, of course, under the Sass, we have a lot of div styles already created for the widgets and the admin styles, editor styles, and stuff like that, so that all the styles are injected. So, for example, we have our fonts that we can control. When I change it over here to something else, it gets injected. We got our main functions, Sass functions, our global functions, header 1s, header 2s, table styles, and stuff like that. So it goes on and goes on. Some shortcodes. We have some shortcodes to add some weepy enough menu styles, some specific widgets with shortcodes in. The template parts, of course, the header and the footer, what's injected into there, and we just always start with just a plain, almost empty site. So this is the vendor folder that has to do with Composer, with all the files that you want to install. For example, TGMPA, that's a plugin that we use to add plugins onto the website. When there's an update from the developer, we just run the update Composer and we get the latest version, and the theme also has the latest version. So of course this has everything to do with WooCommerce. These are empty because we don't have any specific WooCommerce files into it. The main files you need for every website, your archive page with already a lot of stuff into it. Also, for example, we get the post images. We also use some different kind images depending on the responsive version. So the Bower over here, you can define what you need, what you would like to install. This one is empty for the moment. We don't use. We have Font Awesome and Flex Slider that gets installed, and we can add some extra dependencies if we like. Composer just the same over here. The TGMPA, that's the only one we install. Our main functions file, you see it's quite a long one, so there's a lot of stuff that gets done. Of course, our grunt file that and we have some nice stuff in here. We've got, of course, the SAS implementation for compiling all the SAS files to CSS files, and they get compressed. We use post CSS, for example, when we run, when we say grunt prod for production. We run the grunt file, and then also everything is going to be prefixed until 2 versions back. So what also do we have? We have a compress grunt file, and what does this do? It just makes a zip file out of the theme that we can move it very quickly from one WordPress installation to another WordPress installation. So when I use grunt compress, it's gonna compress the whole theme, and it's gonna create over here a custom.zip file that contains the whole theme. So, and then you can go into your WordPress version, you can go to your themes, and you can install it, for example, on another location. So, so mainly we develop it, and sometimes it gets hosted on another completely other server. With the zip file, they can move it quite quickly. So, and the last one we have is the package.json file that gets all the dev dependencies for, like for example, CSS Nano, Grunt, the compress, the SAS, and the watch dependencies to run all the automatic stuff. Yeah, I think I've run through it in almost 10 minutes. So, and when this is done in real time, it takes us about 20-25 minutes to set up the complete custom theme, and then we can just start making our div styles and just start designing the designs that we get from the agency. So, so we don't use any frameworks, we don't use any grid systems, so we have total control, and it's not that we don't like Foundation or other frameworks. The only thing that we had with an experience of almost 5-6 years in doing this is that we can keep 80% of our time onto the development part of it and not hacking or disabling some stuff in themes that you don't need. For example, if your client gives you a design and you use a specific grid system, sometimes it just doesn't fit, and then you have to start hacking into the theme. Yeah. And when the theme gets updated, yeah, can you update the theme? Is it gonna break and stuff like that? So we don't have this anymore on our side. So we have total control. So when a client asks for an update, we just go into the native code and we can make it run. So, so there are no limitations on our side to get the design perfectly from the client into WordPress.